BOYLE Sports.
Welcome back to On The Wire, and this episode is all about the Cheltenham Festival next week. It is the official preview, and we've got a great team to hopefully bring you some real good insight, some winners, and of course, all the banter as per usual. It won't be Andrew Blair-White in the hot seat, it will be myself, Dan Middleton, but we'll guide you through nevertheless, and there's plenty to come on the show. I'm delighted to be joined by Gavin Lynch, Dan Overall and Donn McClean for this Cheltenham Festival preview of 2026. And of course, no Andrew Blair-White this week, so you're going to have to deal with me, unfortunately, off the substitutes bench. But of course, from being behind the camera to in front of the camera, the stakes are a lot higher. Speaking of stakes, do check out the latest from BOYLE Sports. You get money back as a free bet if your horse loses in the first race each and every day of the Cheltenham Festival. Check out all the T's and C's on screen right now or in the link below. Right, and let's get the show on the road then, gentlemen. We'll talk about all the grade ones. We'll start on the Tuesday. We'll go to the Supreme. And as things stand, Don, we'll start with you. Old Park Star, the favourite, got some solid form. And of course, blowing his rivals away at Haydock. Where do you stand on the favourite?
Yeah, he's a really exciting horse, Dan. Of course, he's just been really impressive in everything he's been doing. He's 3 for 3 over hurdles. When he won the Rossington Main last time at Haydock, he was fastest through each of the last 5 furlongs, which it's not just through the last 5 furlongs as a whole, through each of the last 5 furlongs. So look, he's just a really likable horse, progressive, and he could blow them away. I just think that this is a new test for him now. It's a deeper race than any race he's encountered before. I suppose that's true for all of them. But I think he's going to have to bring his form to a new level if he's going to win it. And he's quite short for all of that. I think it's a deeper race than is suggested by the fact that there's a 2-1 favourite in it. I like Talk the Talk. I've liked him for a while now. He was unlucky not to win the Future Champions Hurdle at the Christmas Festival at Leopardstown. He fell at the final flight. And then last time he went back to Leopardstown to the Dublin Racing Festival and he won the Tadas Ireland Grade 1 Novices Hurdle there. It was a massive performance. Like they went no pace through that race and he was held up at the back. And Joseph said afterwards that they were always going to hold him up. They recognised there wasn't much pace on, but they wanted to educate him. They wanted him to come from behind runners and learn that way. And they recognised that might be the thing that got him beaten. But he's got such class. The turn of foot that he showed was really impressive. He was only 8th passing the 2 furlong marker. So to quicken up like he did and beat good horses in Ballyfad and King Rascal Grey, to me, it was a really good performance. I think he's a horse for the future. Obviously, the Turners was an option, but it looks like he's going to run in the Supreme. I think it's the right race for him. I think he's got the pace for Supreme. And yeah, I think he's the one they have to beat.
Gavin, where do you sit on this race? So any sort of chinks in the armour of the runners at the top of the market currently? Or are you going to try and play this with a straight bat?
I think it's very difficult, Dan. It's a very competitive race. There's lots and lots in with chances. I fancy a number of horses for the week, but some of the grade ones I find very difficult at the moment if I was going to have a bet right now. Old Park Star has been brilliant on the clock. I see that there's very little rain between now and next Tuesday. We're recording this on Wednesday afternoon. So I think that if there's no rain, that will really suit him because of the ground he's run on so far. Is Mighty Park going to go here or go to the Turners? Is Talk the Talk going to be for sale in the next few days? It kind of has, kind of hasn't. I agree with Don in that Talk the Talk did incredibly well off a slow gallop in a grade 1 the last day to make up, say, that 4 or 5 lengths from the bend and to nut the other 2, Ballyfad and King Rascal Grey on the line. My Daddy Paddy travels well. Is he going to beat Idaho's Son this time? I doubt it. Leader Dallier, much better the last day than he was at Christmas. El Kairos has a lot to answer in terms of his jumping, but he looks a very, very fast horse. And I know that I was on a couple of preview nights, including one with Don there a couple of days ago, and the Elliott camp are very, very bullish, but he's a lot to prove. If I had to give a token selection, might be Talk the Talk each way at 5-1.
Dan, will finish with you on this one. We heard from Dan Skelton on Racing TV. You can watch that, of course, on the Racing TV YouTube channel. Within conversation with Sam Turner that day, and he was quite bullish on My Daddy Paddy. And I know you just quickly mentioned My Daddy Paddy there, Gavin. But Dan, is My Daddy Paddy a player in the race, or are you looking elsewhere?
He's always been very bullish on My Daddy Paddy. Going into this season, obviously, he was a very short price for the Supreme at a very early stage. I think at Aintree was a bit disappointing. Seemingly the lack of what he found off for pressure that day. Everything before that he'd done very easily. He had to dig deep to try and battle against Idaho Sun and ultimately didn't produce. And obviously hurdles were doled off. There were extenuating circumstances. You'd imagine he would benefit from a very strongly run race in which he can smuggle into it. I can see him coming there quite powerfully. But again, is he going to really dig deep and find in a race where you're going to need to do so? That would be the question for me. We know Idaho Sun would be the one who would keep finding. He will ultimately stay a bit further. If I was going to have a bet in the race, it would be Old Park Star, who I just think has done nothing wrong and he's continuing to impress, not only in the manner of his victories, but as Gavin mentioned earlier, the time, the style of it all, the fact he's able to quicken and maintain it for such a long period of time, like he showed at Haydock. I think that's something nothing else in this field has shown. So yes, he's 2-1. I think he deserves to be, and we know Nicky Henderson knows exactly what it takes to win a Supreme.
Let's move on to the Arkle then. No time to waste during this preview. A two-pronged attack at the head of the market currently, Gavin, with Kopek de Board and Alhambra. And there's a lot of talk that's been happening over sort of the past week or two about these two. And they're going to go head-to-head, and it's going to be a really decent race. Where do you stand? What have you sort of heard, or what are your kind of inklings on this one?
I think same as everybody else, that the bullish reports on Kopek de Board, he's now into 6 and 7-4, which is extraordinary. Like he won a beginner's chase in Avon that was slowly run. He jogged around. He was good up the straight. His jumping early on was just okay, but his jumping in the second half of the race was really good. He then went to Punchestown and also went to Ferryhouse, where by all accounts he schooled in what resembled a race and went really, really well. He was a very impressive winner last year. He'll have to behave himself. He's excitable, just I'll say it the nicest way possible. Everybody was talking about him last year that was he going to handle the prelims at Cheltenham? So he has to just do that again. He's done it once, maybe he'll do it again. Lulamba, if you're back in Lulamba, you're more worried with the first mile than you are the second mile. His jumping early on can be a bit slow. He came off the bridle there as they turned in the last day, but he's a really powerful finisher. Fantastic horse. Like, no 5-year-old has won this in a long, long time. The last one was getting weight, so they don't get weight anymore. So just, you have to keep that in mind. It's incredible that he got beat in what was an average triumph. Cargeese is probably going to take them along with Irish Panther. I was asking David Casey the other day, did he think Kopek would make the running or Cargeese? He wasn't sure. I see Ruby said since that possibly Cargeese might make the running. Irish Panther is definitely going to be up there. He will love the good ground. I would be dead set against Romeo Coolio personally. I just think he should go to the Willow Worm and Ferryhouse personally if I owned him. He's had a tough season already, so I'd be against him. I think it's a tricky race. I back Kopek de Board after Navan at something like 100 to 30. He's a bit shorter now. So I won't put my hand in my pocket again, but I'll cheer for him. But I wouldn't be shocked at all if Lulamba won.
You sort of mentioned there sort of the first mile. How much of a concern is that at Cheltenham if you're sort of not jumping fluently early, if you're not getting into the race early? Does it kind of set you up for almost failure towards the latter part of the race?
I think that this is a very, very obvious statement, but every year at Cheltenham, especially over fences, and it's a very basic thing to say, but it comes down to jumping. You go and look at last year's Arkle. We're talking about the Arkle at the moment. Matchborough was easily the best horse, but he made 3 mistakes, including a terrible one, 2 out. If you look at the last number of years where there's been a lot of odds-on favourites beaten in the Champion Chase, why did they get beat? Because of jumping. Dan, your thoughts on the race?
Echo a lot of what Gavin said, really. I'd say you will be almost certainly getting a bigger price about Lambert in running than you will at the start, although the momentum behind Kopek de Board is quite incredible, really. I mean, he drifted out to about 9-2 when the news broke that he wasn't going to run in the Irish Arkle. That may have been the time to have got involved, but ever since, really, it's been one-way traffic. And that's despite Lulamba putting in what was eventually a very impressive performance against open grade 2 types. And as Gavin mentioned, he lost Lems at, I think, the first 8 fences that day at Newbury. It took him a while to get going. But I also do like that he's been there in a battle and has found under those circumstances. And Cargeese and Irish Panther are going to make this a test of stamina. You're going to have to stay well in this. I guess the real concern is his race going to be over by the time they turn in? Is he going to be able to make up that ground? Because nothing will finish stronger than Lulamba. They're already talking about potentially being 2.5 up to 3 miles next year. Will he lose his race before it's really started?
I'd be worried about Lulamba. I know that a 3-miler won the race last year in Django Bay, trained by the same man. But like Newbury, the last day in the game, Spirit, like they were good horses that he was taking on. They're kind of grade 2 horses, and he did get outpaced. And I think significantly, Newbury's 2.5 miles a furlong. The Arkle at Cheltenham is 2 miles, not even 2 miles. It's 1 mile 7 furlongs, and I think 200 yards. So it's a totally different test. The winning time at Newbury last time was 18 seconds slower than the winning time of last year's Arkle. So it's a totally different test, and he might be good enough to go and win it. But and look, Altior did the same thing. He won the Game Spirit, and he came on and won the Arkle as a novice. So I think if you're backing Lulamba, he's going to trade at a bigger price in running. He's going to get outpaced at some point on the run down the hill, and then as Dan was saying, it's just a case of if he can go and pick them up. Given that he's going to have ground to make up, he's going to come under pressure. So he's almost certainly going to trade at a bigger price in running at some point than his SP. It's a big ask for Lulamba. I think Cargesi's been a little bit overlooked. She's got the pace. She's going to go forward. It's a good style of racing for the Arkle. She'll appreciate the better ground. She was only just caught by Romeo Cullia the last day, and then she was battling back, and that was after making a really significant mistake at the final fence. The better ground will suit her better. She's run twice at the Cheltenham Festival. She finished second behind Magsborough in the Triumph Hurdle when the two of them were clear. They had it between them from a long way out, and that was a good triumph. And then she won the County Hurdle last year. She's got a hurdles mark of 172. Add her £7 mare's allowance into it, and that brings her right up to the kind of mark that you want to be for an Arkle. And yeah, I can see her travelling well into a race on the front end and giving a good go.
Well, runners that won't be travelling to Cheltenham include Constitution Hill, who is obviously out of the Champion Hurdle. The New Lion tops the betting currently with our partners at BOYLE Sports. Strong form, solid turn of foot. But Dom, will come back to you. Maybe a slight tendency to guess at a couple.
Yeah, I'd like he's been favourite or definitely high in the betting nearly continually since he won the Turners last year. And yeah, look, he fell at Newcastle in the fighting fifth when not certain that he would have beaten Golden Ace anyway. And then last time back at Cheltenham, just, yeah, like I know they rode him conservatively. They rode him in behind. They wanted him to win and pop as opposed to have a cut at his hurdles. And he did all of that, but he's going to have a cut if he's going to win a Champion Hurdle. Like he beat Nemean Line's a good horse, but he's 151 or 2 rated horse. And I think he was getting £3 from him. Brentford Hope had finished third, was beaten in a 0 to 140 handicap there at Newbury at the weekend. So on the of course, that's not Champion Hurdle winning form, and he's better than that. But I just think he's short for all those question marks about him. Of course, an awful lot depends on whether or not Lossiemouth's going to come here. Brighter is ahead, big player in the race, and if you want, you can blame the track maybe for her 2 defeats. If she could reproduce her Leopardstown run, then she's the one they all have to beat. I think Poneros is a little bit under the radar. He's the Triumph Hurdle winner from last year. He was 100 to 1 his first run over hurdles, and I think his run at Punchestown when Lulamba beat him was actually a positive. It proved that his Triumph Hurdle run was no fluke. He was beaten 4 lengths by Lulamba, but he made a pretty bad mistake at the final flight. He wouldn't have been beaten that far but for that. And it's hard for 5-year-olds. We know that in a Champion Hurdle. But Willie Mullins left him off until he made his season return only in the Irish Champion Hurdle there at the beginning of February. He did the same with Lossiemouth when she was a sophomore going 5. And she won the International Hurdle, then won the Mares Hurdle, then won at Punchestown. And Poneros is following a similar track. That run in the Irish Champion Hurdle was his first run since Royal Ascot. And he stayed on well. His final furlong was a good final furlong. I know Brighter Days Ahead and Lossiemouth, they tackled each other from early and they were weakening, but it was a promising run with a view to going on to the Champion Hurdle. And he's 1 for 1 at Cheltenham. He's a good horse on the flat. He's a 91 rated horse on the flat. And yeah, I just think that he's just sailing a little bit under the radar.
We can't be having Poneros here, Dom, because I had Hello Neighbour anti-post last year in that Triumph and it broke my heart. There was a sour taste in my mouth with Poneros. I have completely ruled any chance that Poneros has out of this race. But we'll move on to you, Dan. Golden Ace, I thought, was potentially worth the bet here. 6 to 1 currently around about there with our partners BOYLE Sports. I thought if Lossiemouth does go to the mares, obviously it opens the race up even more now. But I thought Golden Ace was potentially interesting.
Well, she's the solid option, undoubtedly. I think what you've mentioned there is key, that it's if Lossiemouth goes to the mares. If she was to run here, she would be the way I'd play this all day long. Like, she's been imperious at Cheltenham in the past. Obviously, form figures of 1-1-2 this season in the big 2-mile graded races over in Ireland. I think last time out, everything just conspired to be in Brighter Days Ahead favour. Heavy ground, Leopardstown, a pace setter that was almost akin to how King of Kingsfield was before in El Fabiolo. It just went a relentless gallop, which really suits her. And that doesn't tend to happen in the Champion Hurdle, and it won't happen under the conditions here. It tends to be more of a test of natural speed and the ability to basically sprint at the end, which Lossiemouth has shown a very good ability to do. She should be running here. She should be the favourite if she does. But like you said, Dan, I think if Lossiemouth wasn't to run here, Golden Ace would be the solid option I think people would go to. And the one I could see hitting the frame as well is Alexei, who I think will be overlooked because of last time. He looked a bit immature. He's progressed up the handicap ranks. Wouldn't in a typical year be good enough. But I love the way he won the Greatwood. Like, that was a really impressive performance. I think he loves a bit of better ground as well, which seemingly just coming right for him. And no surprise at all if he was just to travel into it. Not quite be good enough, but I could definitely see him finishing a good third.
Gavin, anything to add to what's already been said?
The Champion Hurdle is probably my second favourite race at the festival every year. I think it's really open. I think the new line has lots to answer in terms of what has he beaten so far. His jumping is a little bit scratchy. Lossiemouth, I would have said all year she's not going here because she's going to go to the Mayor's Hurdle. But then when you've got, Statement, Sergino, Constitution Hill out, it's very, very winnable. It's not a strong Champion Hurdle. The pace of the race is interesting. Tutu Quanti, who won the Betfair the last day, he may or may not get a solo. We'll see. I haven't backed Brighter Days Ahead, and I might not, but I think I'm starting to lean towards her, perhaps. Obviously, she got beat at Cheltenham twice 2 years ago. I don't know whether it was a case of her and, Jack and Paul looking at each other. I don't agree with that necessarily, but it was a slowly run race. It wasn't a quick time. It's set up for Golden Ace, who's just got that sharper turn of foot. Last year, she had a knee injury. What I'll say is I don't agree that a lot of people are saying that she needs soft ground. And I respect their opinions. It's just if 14 months ago when she put up the performance of the season over hurdles last year, she won by 30 lengths against Statement, etc. Her time was 3:45 on good heel and ground. That was an incredibly fast time. So I think that even at Christmas when she was a length second to Lossiemouth, she was come back from a big break. That small knee injury, she was only a length off her. The last day, the tactics got changed. We kind of thought that Jack was going to, at Christmas, he sat behind Lossiemouth. The DRF, he sat in front of Paul and Lossiemouth. So I think he'll do the same again. I could see Jack sitting second and trying to kick on at the second last because she's a very strong stayer, just like the other mare. But I think the ground's not an issue for her. As I said, she's recorded very fast times on good ground. She was very impressive the last day. I'd actually like to see her win it, to be honest. As I said, I might not have a bet in the race, but I'd like to see maybe Brighter Days Ahead win.
Our sponsors, BOYLE Sports, are always trying to make your job as a punter easier. And if you're a new customer in Ireland with BOYLE Sports, you can get up to €70 worth of free bets. If you bet €10, you are entitled to €70 worth of free bets. Terms and conditions apply. Look in the description down below to avail of a brilliant sign-up offer.
Let's move on to Wednesday then, shall we? We're going to start with the Turners Novices, and I think this is a little bit of a trickier puzzle to solve, guys. Gavin, I'll come back to you. No drama this end. I've been reliably informed this morning. This looks like the way they're going to go with this horse. And I thought, look, the standout actually.
Yeah, I'd be against no drama this end, Dan. Sorry about that. I just think that the form of what he's beaten so far is ordinary enough. The race at Cheltenham, the Challow Hurdle is a bad record. We all know that in the Turners. I just don't think he's beaten it. He looks a lovely horse, going to be a great chaser. I just think he might be susceptible. I could see him finishing second or third. I'd be very, very interested if Mikey Park goes here, but the talk is, it's 50-50 again, which is a huge pity considering the biggest festival of the year. We still don't know where a lot of the horses are going. It's a huge pity, but you'd have to have massive respect for him. He won over 2 miles in Ferias by 38 lengths. One thing to keep in the back of your head is when he was a non-runner at Christmas in a maiden hurdle, that was actually a 2.5 mile maiden hurdle at Leopardstown. So it's worth something. Dr. Steinberg, I think, can go to the Bartlett. King Rascal Grey, I'd say if Mighty Park goes to the Supreme, I think he might go here. He would definitely have a chance. Willie thinks he'll improve a lot from the last day. And also, I think Sober would have a chance. Won a Royal Ascot over 2 miles 6. Jumping the last day early on wasn't great. A punch down, then his jumping was good. I'd say he'd improve tons and tons for that. So for me, it's either Mighty Park at around 7-2 or Sober each way at 16-1.
There you go, 2 in the field from Gavin. Don, your thoughts on the race? I mean, I sort of mentioned no drama this end as being a player in this. I thought Scarlet Hustle could be quite interesting. Obviously, the form of that race at Leopardstown read quite well. The Passing Wife, who was obviously 5th that day, has won since by 9 lengths.
Yeah, I do like Scarlet Hustle. Like, he won after he split the WNO on the Passing Wife at Goran Park, but he improved massively on that next time at Ferias. He won his maiden hurdle by 20 lengths. And then went to Leopardstown for that grade 1. And that was the race in which Talk the Talk fell at the final flight. He probably would have finished second. We don't know for sure, but and he did go to the line strongly, which probably suggested to Gordon that he'd be better stepped up and trip. And that seems to be the case as well. His half-sister, as Sean says, she's a 3 miler. So every chance that he'll be able to step up and trip, and that he'll improve for stepping up and trip. He won his only point to point as well for Colin Bowe. So he's just a horse on a really nice trajectory, and you can see him stepping forward again. First stepping out in trip, like Mighty Park, what he did at Fairyhouse was pretty awesome, really. He just got out in front and just went further and further and further clear. To win a maiden hurdle by 38 lengths in Ireland, it's some performance. No drama this end. Yeah, I'd be just a little bit worried. I know the New Lion won the Challow last year and came on to win the Turners, but and maybe that's changing because the ground at Newbury last year was better than it normally is for a Challow, and it was the same this year. It was good ground at Newbury, unusually for that time of year, and maybe it'll be a better pointer to the Turners now because of that. But it's not a good pointer. I agree with Gavin that the form of the Clint Madrick, really nice horse, but yeah, I think no drama this end is going to have to step up an awful lot on what he's done so far. Like, he finished 9th in the Champion Bumper last year, and I know he's a better hurdler and probably going to be a better chaser as well. And Paul Nicholls loves him, but I just think he's fashionable.
Just on Skylight Hustle, Don, do you think Jack's definitely going to ride him?
I don't know, and I'm sure it's going to be a tough call for him because Ballyfad's a really likable horse as well. Like the time that he clocked at Leopardstown over Christmas, that was really impressive, and he beat Leader Dallier. Has obviously enhanced the form significantly since. Now Leader Dallier probably improved from that, and then he only went down by a short head to Talk the Talk at the Dublin Racing Festival. When he did have the run of the race, he and King Rascal Grey, they were first and second from a long way out, and I thought Talk to Talk did well to get up and beat him. So I think he's going to have to improve again, but look, it wouldn't be surprising to see him going well, and it also wouldn't be surprising to see Jack Kennedy riding Ballyfad, but I hope he rides Skylight Hustle. Dan,
your thoughts on the race? You've got a big opinion on this contest?
I thought Ballyfad would be an interesting each-way player in the race. Just very likeable type, would almost certainly improve the further. Uncomplicated, will go forward. I just think he's going to be there or thereabouts. And to be fair, like Gavin, I thought Sober was an interesting one who's almost been forgotten about. I think he's probably going to end up being second, third string wherever he goes. But I think this race would suit him better than the Supreme, where his flat class actually might be able to tell at the end of the race. His jumping in the early part last time wasn't the best, and that has been a bit of an Achilles heel. In a Supreme, that might catch him out. But if he was to go here, see him given a patient ride again, I could see him coming into it, travelling quite well. And it's just a question if there is a real superstar in the race. And seemingly, based on the talk, it could be Mighty Park.
Yeah, a couple of each-way pokes from the lads for that one. Of course, a reminder of BOYLE Sports' latest offer as money back as a free bet if your horse loses in the first race. So maybe that could be the way in each and every day of the Cheltenham Festival. Check out all the T's and C's in the description and on screen as of right now. We'll move on to the Brown Advisory contest, and a big drift in the market for Final Demand. Obviously, what happened last time out, Gavin, how much of a concern is that for you, or is it sort of a market overreaction?
I think it's a concern, yeah. I won't be with him. I think that, he got beaten the the Turners Novice hurdle last year. He finished third. Very good in Navan. Okay in Limerick. His jump on both days was good, but the last day, when he got taken on by Kay Doughty around the sixth last, he kind of folded. So I didn't like that. And he's a long way to come back. Willie said he's going to try a few different things. Willie also said that perhaps a better ground might suit him, and perhaps it will. It's just that around 7-2 is a bit short. Romeo Coolio won't go here. The big Westerner, I backed her last year in the Bartlett when she was second. Similar ground, but I still think that she's much, much better on heavy ground. She's a brilliant jumper. She gets to £7, but I won't be with her. Kay Dodd, he probably preferred softer. Western Fold definitely has a good chance. He's won an Open Company, winning the Galway Plate, etc. Beat Aberdale Fury, third to Violin. He had a 90-day break, was second to Kay Doughty, and the talk is that he'll improve tons for that. Wendigo will much prefer Cheltenham than Kempton. That wasn't his track whatsoever. Cocktail, Divan, if he goes to the Jack Richards, it'd be very hard beat. But the talk is that Henry is saying 50-50. He might go here to the Brown Advisory or could go there. So he got outstayed on soft ground over 3 miles in Punchestown. But if the ground was decent, and again, as we said, there's no rain in the next week, perhaps he'd have a squeak. Oscar's brother would want it softer. I'm totally against Kitzbühel. I can't see him going left-handed because he jumps out to his right. And one of the 50-1 shot that might run into a place is Predator's Gold. Won well at Navan. The trip the last day was way too short on the inside track in Punchestown. Predator's Gold at 50-1 could sneak into a place. If the ground is decent, maybe Western Fold each way, but don't forget about Predator's Gold at a huge price.
Speaking of the ground, Gavin, of course, your robot in the back garden seems to be doing a lot of work, so maybe we need to hire your robotic lawnmower.
Yeah. Saves me doing it. I do the front, he does the back. That's the agreement. We shook hands on it.
No payment involved, of course. Dan,
No.
let's take a look from your point of view for this contest. Do you think this is a race that potentially could sort of blow up a little bit in terms of runners going elsewhere and kind of down to a limited field?
I don't think it'll necessarily blow up too much from how the market's shaping currently. I'd say you've got Romeo Coolio potentially going elsewhere. I'd say this is probably the least likely of his targets. 6 Mile Bridge, maybe they're favouring the handicap there. Same with Cocktail Divan, might go elsewhere. But I think you're going to get a decent field. It's going to be a very open betting heat. It wouldn't surprise me if money came for Final Demand again, just based on his reputation that somewhat precedes him. For me, I think he's been in the battle twice in his life, and he's almost thrown it in both times. That would be my concern. His seemingly main attributes were his jumping and his cruising speed, and his jumping fell apart a bit the last day once he was challenged. That would be a massive concern for me. With the way the ground is going, I'd agree with Gavin that Western Fold just becomes the solid option. He was clearly there for the DRF with just a view to the future. That ground wasn't going to suit him either, and stayed on quite nicely, really, having never been in the race. Massive drifter on the day too. I think the race of the shape, if you're looking for a Gold Cup horse, you may be struggling a little bit. I think it's more we're looking at national types long term, which is why maybe people might get suckered into the likes of Final Demand, because he may have that class to be a Gold Cup horse. Obviously, after his Chase debut, was he 9-2 to win the next year's Gold Cup in places, which was a little bit ambitious, shall we say. But it's a very tricky race. I think a lot of nice types, maybe not top class types, but if I was going to have a bet right now, it would probably be Western Fold.
Don, are you going to go 3 for 3, or are you looking at this race slightly differently?
No, I can definitely see the case for Western Fold. Like, he's such an unusual novice. He's run 11 times over fences, which is bizarre. He's a goal plate winner. And Gordon gave him a break after Dan Royal, brought him back at Leopardstown. The vibe beforehand was he was going to come on a ton for it, and he actually stayed on really well to finish second behind K. Duthie. He got to within 4 lengths, just over 4 lengths of him, and he'll be better on the better ground, as the lads were saying. He'll be better with that run under his belt. So he's a big player in the race. Just he's a little bit more exposed. Well, he's a lot more exposed than most winners of this race, given that he's run 11 times for a novice. But you can definitely see him going well. I just Final Demand, I'd be with the lads on him. Just a little bit worried that the run the last day obviously wasn't good. It's hard to go to Cheltenham on the back of that. And Willie afterwards, he didn't seem to be able to pinpoint exactly what it was. He said they'd try a few different things. He was obviously disappointed with him as well. And he was beaten in the Turners last year. So yeah, I just think he's similar to a couple of horses we've mentioned so far. I think he's shorter than he should be. You can see the case for Wendigo as well. He, as Gavin was saying, he'd be better at Cheltenham than he was at Kempton. He jumped to his left. It didn't really go well through the race, and yet he was still fastest through the final 4 furlongs and through the final furlong at Kempton in the Cotto Star Chase. Then he went and won an easy race at Ayr. And he was unlucky in the upper part of last year as well. He stumbled on landing over the second last flight. So he did well to finish 5th in the end. But that said, the Big Western finished in front of him. I think she'll finish in front of him again. She's just a really likeable mare. As Gavin was saying, she is at her best on soft ground, but she put up one of the best performances of her life in the Albert Bartlett last year when, again, at the second last flight, she kind of got into traffic. She just got hampered a little bit and had to wait. Darrell O'Keefe had to bide his time before asking her to pick up. Now, I don't think she'd have beaten Jasmine DeVoe anyway. I think he won well, but she might have got closer to him than she did. She's run twice over fence. She was good in beating Jade de Grugy last time, and Jade de Grugy came out and won a Grade 2 race. Okay, an easy Grade 2 race next time, but she won it impressively. And Big Western, I think the step up and triple suitor, that was 2 miles, 6.5 furlongs, step up to 3 miles on a furlong will be a positive for her. That might counteract the better ground, but it's not that she doesn't go in it. She's just a real classy mare who stays. She gets a 7 pounds allowance as well. So yeah, I can see her going well.
Some interesting points there from the guys. We'll move on to the Champion Chase. Now, of course, this race was blown wide apart the last day or so, with Marine Nationale ruled out due to a sore neck. Dan, is this as simple now as Margeborough by X amount of lengths?
On ability, absolutely. We know he's been almost enigmatically talented. I've been surprised with him as a chaser. I think when we saw him as a juvenile hurdler, we were thinking this is a 3-mile horse in future, and he's just shown an unbelievable speed over fences, really. And clearly on ability, he takes all the beating. It's just a case of, are you willing to take a very short price about a horse who's jumping in the Arkle last year, did fall apart in the latter stage of the race, and obviously the ground is quickening up, which maybe isn't ideal for him based on everything we know. So I wouldn't back him at that price. I'm not sure I will back anything in the race. Maybe my heart will lead me back to having just something on Il Était Temps in the hope he can bounce back, because I thought there were signs back end of last season when he won at Sandown, early parts of this year, that he's not the same horse we've seen disappoint at Cheltenham before. He clearly improved his jumping. He clearly just developed as a horse. He was always pretty good, but he was just too headstrong as a young horse. Obviously, last time was just very disappointing. He didn't go for a yard, really, for whatever reason that was. It may be a bit of a leap of faith to think you can bounce back here. It may be later in the season we see that. But I might just have something on Il Était Temps because he's a horse I've always liked. But yeah, to those who are getting involved at Madgeborough at the short price, I would suggest it will be a nervy enough watch for you at times.
Il Était Temps then potentially for Dan. Don, your sort of views on the race. Again, you've got the likes of Il Était Temps, potentially Loda Sud as well. How do you see this race panning out?
Yeah, look, it's a real shame, Dan, as you said, that Marine Nationale is out. He's the reigning champion. He'll be a huge loss from the race. He's a big loss from the whole meeting, I think, as well. So that's a pity. And I was kind of trying to construct a case for Marine Nationale, how he could bridge the 19-length gap between himself and Madgeborough at the better track, or at the better track for him. But no, in his absence now, I think it's Madgeborough all the way. It's probably a no bet race for me. I think he can, given that Marine Nationale is out, I think he can put in a less than perfect round of jumping and still win and win well. I think he's got that much in hand. He's just the performance at Leopardstown at the Dublin Racing Festival was just phenomenal, with cheek pieces on and allowed to bowl away. His jumping was really good. He didn't jump to his left as he had done in the past. So, and he's a Cheltenham horse as well. He's a Triumph Hurdle winner, and he would have won the Arkle last year if he hadn't made all three mistakes. In fact, if he'd made just, if he hadn't made one of those three mistakes, he might have even won it. He was only beaten 3 parts of a length in the end. So, yeah, he's a monstrous horse, and yeah, I definitely won't be betting against him.
Gavin, your thoughts on this contest? I actually thought that maybe Henry de Bromhead's going to start making some phone calls and say, do you know what, Captain Guinness go again. Third in the race last year, currently 50-1 with BOYLE Sports. Could be an each-way bet into the race. Your thoughts on the contest?
If Captain Guinness wins, I'll marry the lawnmower. How's that?
Great. Yeah,
absolutely. Ron recently in Ace. No chance. No, too old. Madgeborough should win. I see he's close to even money there in the exchange. He's 8-11 the bookmakers. I think around even money, if you get it at 4-5, I think that's value. There's some horse I fancy at 25-1 and some I fancy at 4-5. That's just, you have to take each race and its merits. I think I have a theory about Solness that when he runs at Leopardstown, for example, he can stay as wide as he likes on the chase track because it doesn't matter. That's what the better ground is. So if he jumps a bit to his right, that's fine at Leopardstown, where you can't do that at Cheltenham. The reason I mentioned Solness is that I don't think he's going to get involved with a pace angle with Madgeborough. Quilixios might be up there. Thistleask can't go left-handed, so he's not going to run. Like on official ratings, Madgeborough is 174, Loda Sud is 163, Il Était Temps is 171. If Il Était Temps won the last day and Marine Nationale was in here and Madgeborough was in here and they were all guns blazing, I think Loda Sud would be a 12-1 shot. I just don't get the fact, how can he be 7-2? I know he loves a break. He's much better fresh. I think he's better on softer ground. He's going to travel into the dip. He'll travel brilliant to the bend. But if Madgeborough jumps around, he's going to win. Il Était Temps' record at Cheltenham in the Supreme and the Arkle, etc., wasn't good, so he doesn't seem to like the place. Madgeborough is probably, a lot shorter to get around and to jump okay. So I think if you get close to even money, I think that's value.
Some thoughts there from the guys on that contest. We'll move on to the Champion Bumper, the last race we'll preview on the Wednesday. Now, this is a race with sort of runners with a lot of potential, and William Williams currently having 4 of the top 5 in the betting, including Don Lovesign Donu, who won at a canter at Naas last time.
He did, yeah. He was really impressive. He couldn't have done much more than he did. He's a point-to-point winner as well. So, like, he's obviously high on the list. I find the bumper tricky, Dan. We don't have an awful lot of evidence to go on. The Irish Avatar was good in winning at Navan. He beat Low Kick impressively that day, and Low Kick enhanced the form, was really good in winning next time as well, for all that Low Kick probably improved from that. Kieran's in there as well for Willie Mullins, won at Naas, 4-year-old. We haven't had a 4-year-old winner in a while, I think, since Q Card. If I had to choose one at this stage, then it'd be Keeping Company. I thought he was impressive the last day at Leopardstown. He stayed on really well. He went to the line strongly. He's probably a horse who's going to improve going out in trip, but stamina's no liability to bring into a bumper. He beat Generous Risk at Fairyhouse at the Hattons Grace Hurdle meeting, and he beat him nicely. And Generous Risk, his stable companion, was seriously good in winning the maiden hurdle at Leopardstown yesterday. His jumping was actually really good as well, and that may kind of skew it a little bit, but it still enhanced the form of Keeping Company, and another point-to-point winner as well. So yeah, I think Keeping Company, I think Gordon Elliott and his team seem to like him as well. So if I had to choose one for the bumper at this stage, it'd be him.
Dan, is this a race kind of you get your notebooks out and maybe tick off a few for the future contests?
More so than getting involved at this stage as a bet anyway. There's a few. The Morn Rambler I thought was impressive and maybe slightly overlooked at this stage. He ran pretty well, I thought. And this form ties into keeping company as well on a line through Premier Division. Obviously, he's been left off since then. And maybe It's Only a Game can run better than he did at the DRF. That race didn't really suit him at all.
It's 4-1 the field. I could see it going off 5-1 the field. Love Sign Danu was very good in Naas on the clock. More so in the first 2 miles of the race rather than the last couple of furlongs. It was almost a 2-mile 3 bumper. He put the race to bed from a good bit out. He's going to be up in the van the whole way. Patrick's probably going to ride him. So he's a real, 2.5, 3 miler, similar to Keeping Company that Don mentioned. The Irish Avatar, yes, the form got a boost. Just one thing to point out, the low kick sweated up really badly in Navan, whereas the horse didn't in Naas and seemed to improve for that naturally. Quirn is interesting, very experienced 4-year-old. It was down to run a couple of times in France over 1.5 miles and wouldn't go into the stalls. So he's been on the go a fair while. So quite experienced. He does get a £10 weight allowance. I seen Patrick been interviewed the other day and he can't do the weight of 10-11. But if he could, I'd imagine he probably would ride Quirn. Very interesting that the Morn Rambler, who was very impressive in a bumper that's worked out okay so far, out of Africa has won from it since, is that Colin Keane rides. If one of the lads was a jockey, I'd ask them, the fact that Morn Rambler is carrying 3 stone of lead, is that a negative or not? So just something to consider. But he definitely would have a squeak. But very, very, very open race. I know 4-year-olds don't have a good record in the race, but I just wonder if Quirn would have an each way squeak at, 12-1, 10-1.
Our sponsors, BOYLE Sports, are also giving out sign-up offers for our British-based customers. If you bet £10, you're entitled to £40 worth of free bets. Bet 10 to get 40. Terms and conditions apply. You can look down in the description down below to avail of a brilliant sign-up offer.
That's the halfway point. We're going to move on to Thursday. So by this point of your Cheltenham Festival, you may have a little bit of money in the back pocket. All those pockets could be very empty indeed. The Mayor's Hurdle is next up. And Lossiemouth looks the one to beat if those entries go the way that we think possibly could do, Don. Thought Lossiemouth would be rock solid if running in this contest.
Yeah, look, if she does run here, Dan, it'll be a hell of a race between her and Woodhoo. They've met once before at Aintree in the Aintree Hurdle last April, and Lossiemouth won by nearly 3 lengths. I think there's a good chance Woodhoo can reverse those places, and she's just a remarkable mare. She's won her other 9 races over hurdles for Gordon Elliott, and she just finds a way to win. She came under a little bit of a niggle from Danny Gilligan early on at Ascot, but she stayed on well to win nicely. Similar again at Leopardstown the last day, just maybe on the run to the home turn. Jack Kennedy just had to get a little bit lower in the saddle, but she finds a lot. She stays well. I think the move to the new course, the Mayor's Hurdles normally used to be run on the Tuesday, it's now on the Thursday, so it's on the new course. It's a greater test. It's stamina. It's 2 miles, 4.5 furlongs. We know the new course is a stiffer test than the old course. I think that'll suit Woodhoo. Not that Lossiemouth doesn't stay 2.5 miles. She does, but she's got 2 mile pace as well. So I think the move to the different track will suit Woodhoo. She's the Martin Pipe Hurdle winner from last season. I think we still don't really know how good she is. She's only 6. And yeah, I think she could put it up to Lossiemouth.
Gavin, I suppose with Woodhoo, having that Cheltenham form, how important for you or just in general is that Cheltenham form coming into sort of a race like this?
It's a huge factor, and Lossiemouth won the Triumph Hurdle, so she's already won on the new course. As Don said, Woodhoo won the Martin Pipe on the new course too, so they both won around the track. I would just be with Lossiemouth. She's 3 from 3 at the festival, 4 from 4 at the track. If she goes here, I think she'll win. She's already beaten Woodhoo 2.5 lengths at Aintree. Woodhoo's a super mare, 9 out of 10 for Gordon since going hurdling. If Lossiemouth doesn't show up, she'll win, and Jada Grugy would go here, and I think she'd be second. So I think it's quite straightforward.
What's straightforward for me is that if Lossiemouth runs here, there should be an immediate rule change to make sure this never happens again. That's all my only really thought on this race, and it'll be a great race.
Don't be like that.
It can't go on like this, Gavin. Can it? It can't. She's got to be the most open champion hurdle ever. She has to be in it. If she turns up here, it's a big cop out again. Last year they made the excuse of the bad preparation. This time, there's no reason not to run her. So if she turns up here, it'll be a bit of a shame. And I'm glad I won't be there. I'll be only there Tuesday, Wednesday. So I hope to see her in person rather than see her from the TV on the Thursday. Only other comment, it'd be a nice race of third between Feet of a Dancer and Take No Chances, who are both very similar, tough mares. Who'll probably end up... Maybe Feet of a Dancer might go for the Stayers or the Coral Cup. I'm not sure. Come on, make the change.
At least I've got my refereeing sort of kit on here, so I can break you up with your opinions. Then that's fine.
Well, someone needs to. I mean, I was last year when she won the Mares' Hurdle, there was a guy next to me on the steps clapping her in. I was just there shaking my head, thinking it's not right. It's not right. And he was, this is brilliant for the game. I could have done with you then.
So, Dan, what you're saying is that if she shows up in the champion hurdle, you love it. You love it.
Absolutely, yeah. I'll love it if she beats them. Love it.
And I certainly love the stayers hurdle. Let's quickly move on, lads. Tiapu looking to regain, obviously, his crown, winning from last year. Well, Gavin, we'll come to you on this one. And again, form recently looks rock solid.
Yeah, he does. He was very, very good at Christmas. Second run, they didn't just keep him from the Hatton's Grace to Cheltenham, which is good. He showed that he handles better ground. We all used to think that he had to have soft ground. And look, he's 1 from 3 in the stairs. He won it 2 years ago, beaten last year by a 10-year-old. Bob Bollinger is now 11. Tiapu is 9. So you just take an opinion. Are you going to go with the 2 older horses or perhaps the 3 younger ones? I think that what was in behind the 2 older ones last year was poor. I think the Wall Park was 3rd. The Wall Park wouldn't be mapped in this race this year. Honesty Policy is only a 6-year-old. Big eye catcher and Ascot. Really good form last year at Punchestown. Cabral de Matan, I'm not sure if he's going to stay because he's quite he's easy on the eye. He travels really strongly, but maybe he travels too well. Mashan 2 is a great chance. Loves Cheltenham. Came from the handicap route. Really impressed at the last day and the last furlong especially. Look, I think maybe either Honesty Policy each way or Mashan 2. I'm going to go for the young guns.
Yeah, you can make a case for quite a few in this, Dan. And I suppose how do you kind of separate that form line? How do you kind of go about sort of dissecting this race?
Yeah, it's a great race. Doesn't often happen with the Stayers Hurdle. It's one of those divisions that evolves throughout the season, and you never really know what you're going to get at the end of it. But to be fair to Tiahupu and Bob Bollinger, at least they're consistent. They tend to come here and run their races. We know Tiahupu is a vulnerable sword in this race. Very top. He sets a standard in most staying hurdle races he runs in, but it's a beatable standard. I do think Honesty Policy has a bit to find on bare form to get up to that level. But I would be a Masha2 fan. I'm warming to him the more I look at this race. Obviously, you go back to last season as a novice hurdler, he was not of this level. But he's just progressed beyond all recognition, really, through the handicap route. Last time, again, just stepped up markedly on that and just seems to really appreciate Cheltenham and a bit of better ground. His only bad run coming at Haydock, and that can happen at Haydock. It's just a track that doesn't necessarily tend to suit all horses. Cabral de Matan is so much speed. He'll want it to turn into a relative test of speed like last year, but I think they'll be conscious on Tiahupu to make sure that it isn't as it was last year. They're going to probably want to get him stretched a fair way out, and I think that'll suit Mashan too, who is also a very confirmed strong stayer.
Don, your thoughts?
Yeah, I think there's a fascinating race, Dan, between, as Gavin alluded to, the old and the new. Like, before Steer de Burley won this race as an 11-year-old 3 years ago, older horses had no chance. I think Crimson Embers was the last horse age of double figures to win it, and that was in the 80s when Gavin was a lad. But a young lad. What he did last year was phenomenal. Rachel Blackmore gave him a super ride. I had him down as a doubtful stayer last year, but he really stayed. Although they did go a sedate enough pace, which suited him, but he showed his class and his speed. And actually, in the Christmas hurdle this year, he ran a lot better than I thought he would. He finished second behind Tiapu. So look, he's an 11-year-old now. Henry de Bromhead reports him in great form. It wouldn't be surprising to see him go well again. Tiapu again, he's run really well in 3 stairs hurdles. If the ball had hopped a little bit better, he could have won 2 or even 3 of them. He's got 1 on the board, and he's looks to be as good as ever this year. Honesty Policy is the improver. He ran really well on the long walk hurdle last time, and every chance he'll step forward again. Cabral de Matan, yeah, just be a little bit worried that about his stamina. He wasn't going for the race, then he wasn't, and now he is again. So it's going to be interesting to see how far he gets and how well he stays. But like Dan, I like Mashan too. I just think that he's got a good bit to find. He's got a rating now of 154 after his Cleve Hurdle win. So that still leaves him with a little bit to find on the top ones. But he's only 7. He's had 9 runs over hurdles. He's got that good mix of kind of experience and potential to improve again. Emma Lavelle did this with Paisley Park, albeit Paisley Park he started off at a higher level. When he won a Haydock in November, he was rated 147. Mashan 2 was rated 129 at Cheltenham in October. As Anne said, he disappointed at Haydock and Cheltenham, very different tracks, back on track on New Year's Day. And then in the Cleve Hurdle the last day, he was very, very good. We know that he stays, but he showed the last day they didn't go a great pace in the race. It was a finishing speed of 110% according to Race IQ, but he quickened off it. He was over a second faster than the next fastest in the up the final hill in the final furlong. So to me, to be able to show that pace for a horse who we know stays, that they're big assets to bring into a stayers hurdle. And yeah, I can see him going well. I can see him improving again to be a big player in the race.
The last couple of races we're going to have a quick look at on the Thursday, the Ryanair and the Pertemps. So we'll start with the Ryanair very quickly here, guys. And Factor File, of course, decided to burn me at Kempton when I had a pretty big bet on him in the King George, then decided to dot up in the Irish Gold Cup. So I can't really put my finger on Factor File here, Dan, but I thought if Factor File does turn up, surely wins.
Well, if it's any sort of form that he showed last year, he's obviously incredibly hard to beat. I guess there is now a slight concern that he is a bit in and out, and almost seemingly without much explanation. Obviously disappointed that Punchestown the back end of last season down to 2 miles. On the speed he showed at Cheltenham in the Ryanair, that shouldn't have been an issue. And to be honest, he was beaten at an early stage that day. So maybe his inconsistency is becoming a bit of an issue, because then run a brilliant race in the John Durkin behind Gaelic Warrior in that brilliant finish behind 2 extremely high-class horses. You got your fingers burned in the King George when many others did as well, where again, he was never really in the race. It wouldn't have suited him the way it was run, but again, didn't really happen. Then, as you say, quite well back to win at the DRF and won it impressively. So I guess the one query is maybe a slightly patchy profile at the minute based on one good run, then one run you can't really explain. But if he turns up in 80% of the form he showed last year, he'll take all the beating in this against horses we know for the most part he's better than, or the likes of John Bonham Banbridge, very fair, admirable types. It's just they're both 10-year-olds who've had many a battle, whereas Factor File is 9, but still relatively lightly raced compared to those.
Gavin, do you echo those thoughts? Is this a race that you're kind of getting involved with?
Not at the prices, no. Sure, he's odds on, well odds on. If you haven't backed him by now, you're not going to back him at 2s on, 4 to 7. We better enjoy the Ryanair, because Dan's going to get this race banned as well, I'd say. So
maybe get back to 3 days, it'll go.
Yeah, Dan would have it as 2 days if he was given his way. But
6 races only.
Yeah. So enjoy the last ever Mayor's Hurdle and the last ever Ryanair Chase. But Factor File should win. The performance between him and Gaelic Warrior and the John Durkin, both of those, there was very little in it that day. Photo finish. Either of those performances would win this race. If Factor File goes to the Gold Cup, well, then Gaelic Warrior will go here, etc., etc. We know all that. Banbridge perhaps could be second or hard. But one of those to be second. Banbridge would love good ground. The Cheltenham record is okay, say back in the day, but not more recently. If something changed where Factor File was going to the Gold Cup, perhaps Imperial Pass, who miraculously won in Goran Park, having been 4 lengths behind the last, maybe he'd go here, but that's very, very unlikely. So yeah, Factor File to win, yeah.
Factor File to win for you, Don?
Yeah, look, the performance that he put up last year was one of the performances of the week, if not of the whole season, in this race. So if he goes here, then of course he's the one they all have to beat, but he's priced up accordingly. Yeah, look, I like Imperial Pass, as Gavin mentioned. If he comes here, I think the plan is to go to entry for sure, and then it's just a case of figuring out if they can come here in the meantime and still go on to entry, because he's only had one run this season, and that was in the Goran Park race that Gavin mentioned, that the Red Mills Chase. Like his performance there was quite incredible. It was only a 4-horse race, but he was in behind. They didn't go any pace at all. So the turn of foot that he showed at Goran from the final fence, quite a short run in. And also he was away from the stands rail. Paul Tannen had to deliver him on the far side in order to get a run. So I thought it was seriously impressive. And there's this kind of notion that he's an entry horse, and he is. He's 2 for 2 at entry, but he's 1 for 1 at Cheltenham. He won the Turner's Hurdle a couple of years ago, beat Gaelic Warrior in that. And his form is so strong. Like in the Manifesto Chase last year, he beat Gidley Park and Django Bay. And he's still a lightly raced horse. He's only had 6 runs over fences. So another horse from him that could be a good bit more to come. So I think he's a classy horse. I think maybe the fact that there's a doubt about him running in the race has led to him just not being part of the Ryanair conversation. But I think if he runs in the race, he's going to be a big player in it.
Let's have a quick look at the Pertemps then, ever so quickly, with Supremely West for Dan Skelton, all the rage at the top of the market over the last few days. Said different for Sam Thomas as well, very much in there. Dan, and your quick thoughts on the contest?
Yeah, Supremely West hasn't been missed anymore. I think there's been obviously a clear plan since he qualified back in October. I think at the prices now, I think Electric Mason represents fair value against him. Obviously, he was second in that race. Obviously, Mashan to the winner. We've obviously touched on him. I thought Electric Mason's run that day could be upgraded by the fact that he was prominent throughout and almost got into a prolonged battle with the likes of Gal Road from a long way. And you look at anyone who finished in and around, obviously the likes of Supremely West, the likes of Mashan too, ridden with a bit of patience to come home there, where Electric Mason was in front a long way out and stayed at it quite well. Obviously won the big race at Haydock, which routinely is one of the best bits of 3 mile handicap form there is in Britain. So the fact he was able to win that, and as usual, many winners have come out from it. Yes, he's higher in the weights as a result. He's not as well weighted as Supremely West is, but I think you can upgrade what he's done this season. Still very unexposed as a 3 miler, and they've left him off specifically for this. We know KTD, they all about Cheltenham, and I think he'll be banged there. If Supremely West may be a bit too well handicapped, we'll see. But I think Electric Mason at double the price is a very fair price.
Yeah, good angle into the race there. Dan, Don, your thoughts on the Pertemps?
The favourite is sticking out. I know Gavin likes him as well. His run at the Cheltenham meeting was really good, and then his 3 runs since then have been fairly abject, but he's off a 2 pounds lower mark than he was when he was beaten 5 lengths by Mashan too, who Dan and I think is going to win the Stairs Hurdle. So look, he's just a potentially really well handicapped horseman. That Emperor ran well in the Haydock qualifier there the last day, and looks like he's going to come on from that at a mark of 130 is fair. Let Out of Tony Mullins, I think he's an interesting horse. He battled on really well to win the Brown Lad handicap hurdle at Naas there back in early November. He beat the Nagaridi in that, and the Nagaridi came out and won a competitive handicap hurdle. Thought he was probably outstayed at Carlisle the last day in the qualifier, but that was over an extended 3 miles on soft ground. I think on better ground that will help him, so he could be interesting. And Melbourne Shamrock won well at Naas the last day, and he's got a mark of 132, probably higher than ideal. But again, Emmett Mullins' horse owned by the Whaley Cohens, so he's a factor in the race. Man's interesting as well, off 133. I think he's 10 pounds lower than his Chase mark. So if he can obviously reproduce his Chase form back over hurdles, then that would make him a big player. But I think Supremely West is the most likely winner, and he's the right favourite.
If I had to pick 2 horses to win for my pocket, it would be Supremely West and Backmere Sackme. I did back Say Diffron a good while ago at 10-1, but I've had far more bets on Supremely West since. Say Diffron is interesting. He's 4 from 4 in handicaps. He's up to 131. Sam Thomas doesn't run them unless they have a chance. He's only running 3 at the festival. That has an each-way squeak. I think the Irish horses are very beatable. There's nothing standing out from this side of the Irish Sea. Supremely West came from Dr. Richard Newland, went to Dan Skelton of 137. Finished 3rd in the qualifier, just behind Dan's horse Electric Mason, but he's 13 pounds better off with that next week. The next day he went off 5-4 favourite. He went down the inside all the way around on the worst ground, and the stewards had a chat with Harry Skelton wondering why he did that. His next 2 runs were over 2.5. The vibes are very good, and I think Supremely West will take a lot of beating. Please God.
One of the other great offers from our sponsors, BOYLE Sports, is best odds guaranteed, applying to all singles and multiples. You can get bog on all singles and multiples at BOYLE Sports.
Triumph Hurdle time. No Narciso Haas, of course, in this race. So Proactive tops the betting with our partners at BOYLE Sports. Of course, good run at Auteuil before joining Willie Mullins Don, and followed that up with a Fairy House win.
Yeah, he did, Dan. He beat Macho Man in that. It was a good performance. And I suppose he's the ready-made kind of horse who can move into the slot that Narciso has left. Same trainer, Willie Mullins, and owner JP McManus. You can see him confirming form with Macho Man. I liked Selma Devari, though. I thought she was good the last day behind Narciso Haas. And even without him, or even when he was in the race, I was thinking that there was a chance that she might be able to reverse places with him. The Spring Juvenile Hurdle at Leopardstown at the Dublin Racing Festival, it's an unusual race in that it's a good pointer to the Triumph Hurdle, as you would expect, but it's the beaten horses who seem to do better in the Triumph Hurdle than the winners. I think there have been 3 of the last winners who've gone on and won it, and 6 beaten horses have gone on and won the Triumph Hurdle, so twice as many. And Selma Devari, more than that, just the mere stat. Before the race, before the Spring Hurdle, the expectation was that she would come on quite a bit from it. And I thought she did well to get past a good horse of Gordon Elliott's in Monge too, who had beaten Narciso Haas at Fairy House actually earlier in the season. She stayed on to take second place behind the winner, who admittedly won really well, but I think she can come on from that. She's obviously a lightly raced horse. She's only had 4 runs over hurdles. That was her first run for Willie Mullins. Her dam won over 1.5 miles in France, so plenty of pace in her pedigree as well. And I think she can improve enough from her run the last day to be a big factor.
So Selma Devari then for Don. Dan, I want to throw one at you here. Minella Studi, I thought, was potentially interesting. May have gone under the radar a little bit. Of course, Adam Nicol going quietly about his business this season. It certainly helps that his younger brother works with me and us directly here at Racing TV, so you kind of get the inside scoop on that one. But I thought Minella Studdy shown some really decent form of late.
Well, he's been impressive. I think beyond what you would expected from a 69 rated hurdler, 69 rated flat horse going hurdling. But also Woodhoo was very lowly rated over on the flat, and look what she's achieved. I think maybe the question mark now is the interrupted preparation. They missed 2 engagements, it seemed. Potentially they had Musselburgh on the agenda, and the Victor Ladorum didn't turn up in either. So now turns up on the back of a 3-month absence, which I don't think is ideal. But he looks very professional. I imagine he'll be ridden prominently. But I would agree with Don, to be honest, on Selma de Vary, who I thought, considering all the circumstances around that first run for the yard, was extremely impressive. And I think there was a belief, obviously, beforehand that the Manch 2 Narciso Has form line was the strongest in the division. So therefore, in my view, she kind of has to step in as the favourite. The vibes around Proactive seem quite strong, which is why I think he somewhat heads the betting. But I think Paul Townend would have learned a lot from that last day. She'll be ridden to, I imagine, in a similar style, but she settled quite well, I thought, at Leopardstown, despite obviously being hooded and seemingly has been for most of her career. So I thought Selma de Vary should probably be favourite on what she's achieved on form, but another very open race at the festival. We're now with Narciso Has not running.
Gavin, could you make us some history here on The Wire, and hopefully all 3 of us can agree on one selection here, and that's Selma de Vary, or are you looking elsewhere?
I'm going to go somewhere else, Dan. I'm not going to go with Dan, Don, and Dan. No, I'm going to go with Macho Man. Very impressive on the 1st of October in Otay. Wore a tongue tie that day. Beat Field Gut, who's now with Nikki, won by 5 lengths. I thought that was a really, really taken performance. Went to Fairy House. Wasn't able to cope with Proactive, who got the run of the race. I just think Macho Man could improve tons for that. I like Proactive as well. Selma de Vary has a good chance. Really think she'll improve a lot for the DRF. I just think at 7-2 Proactive, 8-1 Macho Man. So I think at the prices, I know the 2 of them cost a huge amount of money. I think Macho Man could improve a lot for Fairy House at 8-1 each way.
Let's move on to the Albert Bartlett. This is the penultimate race we're going to preview here on this episode of On the Wire. And Dr. Steinberg, currently the nap of a lot of people at the festival that I've sort of seen in the world of social media. And Don, where do you sort of stand on this runner?
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see if he comes here instead of going for the Turners. It's not fully decided yet, I don't think. But like watching the Nathaniel Lacey hurdle the last day, Dan, at Leopardstown, and watching it live, he was just so keen. You were thinking, well, I was thinking anyway, but he's not going to get home. So I was looking in behind to see what was traveling and what was going to come and get the better of him. But nothing did. He just kept on going forward, and he went further away actually on the run to the line. It was a really impressive performance. I think he surprised connections a little bit. Like he was, a good bumper horse without being a world beater. And this year he won his maiden hurdle at Galway at their late October meeting. Then in the Navan Novices hurdle, he took a big step forward there. He beat the Devil You Know in that. That was over 2.5 miles, and then obviously went on to the Dublin Racing Festival. So look, he's obviously a hugely talented horse. I just worry about him settling through the early part of an Albert Bartlett. Like, we know that it's a real grueler. We know that it's a race that can throw up big price winners. And like horses, the young novices, they've been asked to do something that they haven't done before, to go that fast for that long in an Albert Bartlett hurdle. So look, you can understand why he's favourite, and if he settles, he'll probably take a lot of beating. But I like the Devil You Know. I know he got beaten by him at Navan the last day, but I just thought that he improved again for stepping up to 3 miles in the River Don hurdle at Doncaster the last day. That was the day that Paul Nolan brought him over and Fianna Dancer, and they both won. The Devil You Know, like he beat Skylight Hustle and the Passing Wife at Goran Park over 2 miles back in November. I mean, he shouldn't have been near 2 miles. So for him to have that pace, and I know Skylight Hustle improved since then, but he's enhanced the form. The Passing Wife has enhanced the form. The Devil You Know travelled well into the Navan race, and in the end just couldn't get to Dr. Steinberg. But I think up in trip, he comes into the race on an upward curve. Paul Nolan's horses are in good form, and he went close with Latest Exhibition in this a couple of years ago. It was only just beaten by Monkfish. So the Devil You Know, he looks like a real Albert Bartlett horse, and yeah, I can see him. I think he's a really solid option in the race.
Well, we all know on this podcast, then certainly know who would be back in the Devil You Know, trained by Paul Nolan. Unfortunately, he can't be here with us today, hence why I'm in the hot seat. But Dan, I know Andrew will be very, very keen on the Devil You Know. Do you sort of echo Don's thoughts there?
You know what? I have the unfortunate privilege of speaking to him quite often, and I think even he's of the opinion that now, compared to Dr. Steinberg, that I think the prices are getting a bit too close together. I think he's actually a fan of both. I don't think he'll be mind which one wins if one wants to do so. And I'd kind of echo that now. I think we're at the stage now where Dr. Steinberg sort of around the 3-1 mark compared to the Devil You Know at 9-2. I think there's value in what Dr. Steinberg at this stage, who was very impressive at the DRF, for all that it wasn't a strong renewal of that race, but to pull for as long as he did and still finish the race as strongly, I thought that was the mark of a quite a fair horse, and clearly he's improved well beyond any recognition of what they expected from him. The only one at a big price I'll mention is Jalon Dudery, who does have to improve on what he's done over hurdles, but you go back to what he was as a bumper horse. He was always looking like he would be a stayer. He's third in the champion bumper. Obviously, Jasmine DeVoe and Romeo Coolio were the first two that day. They've done a fair amount to somewhat boost that form. He missed the season, and I think it's been a case of building back slowly. He's second to Frankie John at Leopardstown. He was second to Sortudo. Then he won a pretty average enough race last time out. I do think soft ground is quite important to him, though. So I think he's one to watch the forecast. It doesn't look particularly wet, but if for whatever reason it did turn out more on the soft side, I think Jalon Dudery could outrun what are likely to be fairly lengthy odds.
Just to say to punters that the average price winner of this race for the last 10 years is 20-1. So just it's a grueler for a novice hurdler, especially on the new course. My God, Jalon Dudery would definitely have a squeak if the ground was soft. Espresso Milan at 12-1 is probably okay value for Willie's horse. I think Don is picking the Devil You Know just because he likes Kylie Minogue. That's just a guess.
Rumbled.
Dr. Steinberg, very impressive in Galway over 2.5, jumped very well, especially the second half of the race. Beats the Devil You Know by nearly 5 lengths in Navan. I don't see why the Devil You Know is going to turn it around. I think these two are going to drift. I think the current prices of 3-1 and 4-1, I could see Dr. Steinberg SPing a little bit bigger, and I definitely think the Devil You Know will SP bigger than that. It's just the bookmakers will want to take these two on, definitely. Dr. Steinberg, yeah, he was very, very keen the last day. I think Paul will ride him differently. I can see him sitting 5th or 6th, trying to settle him in behind. I think the last day wasn't a strong grade 1, but I think he takes a lot of whacking.
Let's move on to the final race that we'll be previewing then on this On the Wire, and it is the Gold Cup, of course, and some real top contenders. Currently, as things stand, lined up, of course, co-favourites of 3 with our partners BOYLE Sports, Gaelic Warrior, Django Bay, the Jukebox Man, of course, Galopin de Champ in there. I Know the Way You're Thinking's been back for Gavin Cromwell. Dan, go ahead, my friend. Try and pick this one apart.
Yeah, great renewal, an open one. Obviously, I think we'd all like to see Galopin de Champ do it, but I think he's against some younger rivals who I think probably are just going to be a bit beyond him. If Gaelic Warrior was to run, and it looks like he might do, I'd have to be massively interested in him. I just think he's somewhat coming of age as a staying chaser. I guess the caveat is obviously still showed his early keenness at the DRF. Will likely be a case of Patrick Mullins riding. You'd imagine Paul will stick to Galopin de Champ no matter what. So that would somewhat cool my interest there, because we saw Gaelic Warrior almost pulled himself into mid-division at an early stage last time, which ultimately probably cost him the race. So therefore, probably Django Bay is the more reliable yardstick, who was a strange novice chaser, because obviously I don't think many expected him to win an Arkle, and he was massively outpaced during that race. But Arkle winners going into a Gold Cups are a rare phenomenon. But he's, on no uncertain terms, proved he wants this kind of trip. Very impressive at Ascot. The King George didn't work out for many horses. I don't think you can take that as a literal piece of form by any stretch of the imagination, just the way that race was won. I think he'll definitely benefit from the step up to this kind of trip. I'm not sure the same can be said of the Jukebox Man, who at the start of the season, it was King George, Ryanair. That was locked in their plan. And now all of a sudden it seems to have changed to, we've always thought he's a Gold Cup horse. I'm not quite buying that. I think he's still got quite a lot of natural pace that would be quite well suited to a Ryanair. So I think Django Bay at this trip might just improve past him.
Yeah, interesting take on that one there, Dan. Gavin, is Galopin de Champ a potentially backable price at this point?
Yeah, he's 7-1. I could see him going off a bit shorter because the public love him. He's possibly the best staying chaser we've had in the last 10 years. I think he is anyway. The downside is that he's 10. The one thing I'll say to you is that David Casey on the preview night that me and Don were at on Tuesday night, he was very, very bullish. He said that the horse wasn't right at Christmas, so they thought he would improve a lot for the DRF, but he didn't. He was a very tired horse. He hadn't recovered physically, but he said in the last 10 days, he's absolutely blossomed. He said he's working brilliant, way better than before Christmas and way better before the DRF. So that's interesting. Look, I think it's too hard a race. I would really like Fact to File, but he looks like he's going to Dan's race, the Ryanair. And I think it's hands in the pockets for me. I think it's very tough. I'd be against Haiti Couleur because I think he needs a bog. I know the ground was decent when he won the Welsh Grand National, but even so, I think to turn it into a staying race, he needs really soft ground. Probably the same for Spallan's Tower. Grey Downing mightn't be good enough. I know the way you're thinking. the talk is that he's back to his best. If he is, he's got a huge chance. Gaelic Warrior, amateur ridden, he'll be down the inside, held up, trying to settle him. Jukebox Man, got Shane and a Bartlett. Django Bay, is he definitely going to stay? Look, lots of questions. I love the race, can't wait to watch it, but I think for me, hands in the pockets.
And Don, yourself, are you kind of echoing what Gavin's saying, or are you going to stick your neck on the line almost and go with the selection?
The Gold Cup, like Gavin, you just have to love the race because you've been building up to it for 12 months. It's not like on a Tuesday you get declarations and then you're trying to figure out a Saturday race. This is 12 months in the offing, and it's brilliant that you just kind of, you're dying to see it being run so that you can find out what happens. It's no good when you're trying to have a bet in the race beforehand, but it's a hell of a race. Look, I echo a lot of what the lads said. The Jukebox Man, like he was only just chinned by a Stellar Story in the Albert Bartlett hurdle a couple of years ago, and then he had that time off. He's only had 4 runs over fences, so you have to put him into the mix. But I just worry that he might get done for stamina in the end. Another way you're thinking, it'd be fantastic if he could come back and win it again. It'd be some training performance by Gavin Cromwell, and the vibes Gavin was saying seem to be quite positive about him. Galloping the Champ, he'd be obviously a hugely popular winner to win a Gold Cup, lose it, then come back and win it again. Where we've seen that before as a 10-year-old, the first 10-year-old since Cool Down in 1998. So look, it's got so much going on in it. But from a betting perspective, I think Django Bay is a massive player. Like he's only a 7-year-old, improving 7-year-olds. When these 6-going 7-year-olds start to improve and stepping out and trip, you just don't know how high they're going to go. Kicking King was one of those. War of Attrition, Size and John was one. Absolute nearly won it, and as a 7-year-old, then won it as an 8-year-old. And Django Bay, like everybody knew last year, the Arkle was too short a trip. He was only running in the race because Sergina wasn't. And then, okay, it was a remarkable Arkle the way it panned out, but he still won it. And then this year, he looked very good at Ascot. At Kempton, again, as Dan was saying, it didn't pan out for him, but he still stayed on really well. He finished a close-up 4th. He was only beaten a total of a half a length in the end by the Jukebox Man. We know he's a Cheltenham horse. He's 2 for 2 at Cheltenham. We don't know about the trip, but definitely in the King George, he looked like he would be better over further or with a greater test of stamina. 2.5 furlongs at Cheltenham versus, the 3 miles exactly at Kempton. It's a big step up in terms of stamina, but he does shape like he'll get it all right. And I think if he does it, he's got so much more going from Trent by Nicky Henderson as well. He skipped the Denman Chase at Newbury because of the soft ground, which I think was a positive coming straight on here after the King George. And I think he's got a massive chance.
But that brings us to the end of the Grade 1 previews. However, there's still a little bit of time left in the show for the guys to give their selections. They're going to look maybe at the Grade 1s, maybe if they're really confident, but also, of course, we've got Grade 2s. We've got loads of handicaps at the Cheltenham Festival, so the lads are going to give their best bets. We'll start with you, Gavin. Away you go.
I like back me or sack me in the last race, the National Hunt Novices Handicap Chase. He stayed over 3 mile 2, I think it was, in Cheltenham. 3 runs ago very strongly. The last time out, he won over 2.5 in a very competitive race, the DRF. I think the step up and trip will suit him. I would have respect for Newton Tornado. Weighed out, doesn't jump particularly well. Iceberg Theory would have a chance for Paul. No, I just don't think it's a strong race. I was talking to Paul Byrne the other day, and I said to him that, 6 of the main dangers don't run the race. Argento Boy, Joystick, the Wall Park, Boss of the Brownies, Show Your Appreciation, and Blaze the Way. None of them are in it. I think it's a very well-run race. I think 4 to 1 is very fair. In the plate, also on the Tuesday, back these a while ago, Madara, McClory. I see that the entries have come out there, the 6-day deck. So there's a lot of horses that are not in it. I think they're 4 and 5 to 1. I think if you back one and save on the other, you're going to get a huge run for your money. I would also go for in the Ultima. Okay, Jaguar will be very hard beat. But Blaze the Way off 146. Now, he's only getting £6 off Jaguar, which is not a lot. He's 20 to 1. He'd have a little chance. In the cross country, if you get 3 to 1 and 5 to 1, Favori de Champdou and Desert Moor House, each way 4 places, they look like they have to be involved in the finish. The Jack Richards Cocktail Divin is very interesting, off 150. He put in a brilliant performance at Christmas when beating Kiss Will by 21 lengths. That was a top-class effort. But I just wouldn't discount Jordan's Cross. He won the Timeform Novices Handicap Chase towards the end of January. If I can just give you a few stats from the last few years. The last year's winner was Jaguar. He won at Cheltenham. Ginny's Destiny won it the year before. He was second. Stage Star won it the year before. He won. The year before that, Imperial Alcazar won the Timeform Novices Handicap, and he was second at Cheltenham. And the previous year, Simply the Bets and Imperial Aura were first and second. And I remember it was 2020. It was when COVID kicked in. My wife said to pick up the kids at around 4 o'clock. So I'm watching Simply the Bets in the plate. And as he's jumping two out, the kids are getting in the car. How are you? How are you? Yeah, how are you? Anyway, thankfully, Simply the Bets did us a favour. But I'm just saying that the record of horses in the time form novices handicap chase at Cheltenham Festival is absolutely, it really is brilliant. So I think Jordan's Cross around 10-1 is an each way squeak. And we've already mentioned, for me, one of the bankers of the week is Supremely West at 4-1 in the Pertemps.
Donn McClean, we'll come to you next.
Yeah, just and the handicap stand. Two of Paul Nolan's actually, Feet of a Dancer. She's in the Stairs Hurdle. She's in the Mares Hurdle as well. I think if she runs in the Coral Cup, it's not ideal. She does stay further than the intermediate trip, but she's got a mark of 144, which I think is the same as her Irish mark. And she ran a massive race in the Pertemps last year. She finished fourth. She was held up in a race that wasn't run at a strong pace. It wasn't run to suit. I thought she did well to finish fourth. She looks like a better mare this year. She won the Covega hurdle in the early part of the season at Punchestown over a trip of 2.25 miles, which was too short for her. She gave Woodoo a run at Leopardstown over Christmas, and then last time she went to Doncaster and won the Grade 2 Mares hurdle there over 3 miles. So I think a mark of 144 is more than fair for her. Iceberg Theory as well. I think he's got a big chance in the National Hunt Chase. We haven't seen him for a little while since Cork last November, but chatting to Paul Nolan at Leopardstown, actually interviewed him after his winner, and he was quite positive about Iceberg Theory. He stayed on really well in his last two runs at Limerick and Cork. They were kind of over 2 mile 5, 2 mile 6, and the form of both races has been enhanced. Boston Rover, who he beat at Limerick, has won his next 3. He's now rated 134, and he beat O'Toole at Cork the last day. O'Toole came out and won the good handicap chase there at Leopardstown 2 days ago. So Iceberg Theory's got a mark of 133. It's £4 higher than his Irish mark, but he's a progressive horse. He should improve as well for stepping up in trips. So I think he's a big player in the National Hunt Chase. Munsif in the Fred Winter Hurdle. He's come from that Nace race. That's always a good pointer to the Fred Winter Hurdle. That hasn't happened in the last couple of years, but Charles Burns, who trains him, ran Biker in the Nace race. He went on, was only just beaten by Jazzy Matty, who had finished behind him at Nace, actually. And Munsif this year, Saratoga finished second in front of him. He's a big player in the race, but Munsif's a bigger price. He was a slightly higher rated horse on the flat. He was rated 93 in the flat, so a classy recruit. He's had the 3 runs over hurdles, and he's got a mark of 126. I think that's £5 higher than his Irish mark. That's fine as well. And then I think Slade Steel is an underrated horse in the Jack Richards Chase. Looks like if Cocktail Divan, his stable companion, runs in it, he's obviously a massive player. As Gavin said, he's only £1 higher in Britain than he is in Ireland. He's off 150. But Slade Steel, he's the Supreme Novices Hurdle winner from a couple of years ago. He hasn't won yet over fences. He's run 5 times, but largely he's been running on soft ground. He's better horse on better ground. The last day at Navan, he was travelling like the most likely winner to the second last, and between the last 2 fences, he was just outstayed up the hill on heavy ground over 3 miles by Joystick. He's off a mark of 146. He's got a hurdles mark of 151. So he's got lots of leeway in that mark of 146. Back at Cheltenham, where he's 1 for 1, and back on better ground, back over the intermediate trip. We know the Henry de Bromhead horses, they can go be dynamite at Cheltenham. Yeah, I think Slade Steel has been a little bit overlooked.
Dan, overall, have you got a couple of aces up your sleeve?
All in the handicaps. Leave of absence in the Ultima. I think it's 20-1. It's a race that stood up probably better than I thought, but he's a course and distance winner who showed a good attitude that day, arguably arriving on the back of 2 career bests the last twice, and very lightly raced at his age. Would traditionally have quite a good profile for the race. In the play, I be with Gavin that Madara would be my main play in the race. Has clearly just been mapped out for this for some time. No surprise if the headgear goes back on as well. And he may be disappointed a few when he didn't win the December Gold Cup a couple of years ago, but I think he picked up an injury that day. I think there's a big race in him, and I'm hoping it will be that one. In what was the Coral Cup, now the BetMGM Cup, Jinko Blue for Nicky Henderson, who has a fantastic record in the race. And he would have a very similar profile to many of his winners, in that he's still very lightly raced, especially over hurdles. A good run behind Cabral de Matan when last seen. Mark 144 is actually £7 lower than he's rated over fences. And he had a back issue, which I think they operated on over the summer. And I think there's probably reason to suggest he's got a bit more in him. And I'd say he's probably a better hurdler than he is a chaser based on that. If she runs in the Grand Annual, I think Break My Soul's interesting. It's obviously a very tricky race. But she's only had the 4 starts over fences. Ian Donohue's done a brilliant job with her. She was second to Kitts Boohor the sort of back end of last season. Only not too far behind Take No Chances, Lossy Mouth and Woodhoo at Aintree. 2, I'd say, good runs over fences. Sandwiched a couple of ordinary enough efforts in deep company, but last time got a 4 for into, and it very much looked like she'd improved for that. As if she runs in the Grand Annual, I think that race would really suit her. In the Pertemps, I say, I chucked on Electric Mason. I think he's being overlooked. I think if you look at the race back in October, there's reasons to upgrade that performance. And then finally, in the Martin Pipe, if the Passing Wife does run, I think he'll take a lot of beating. I think he'll go off 7-2, 4-1 for it. There's not many high-class Irish novice hurdlers in the race. I think he is the absolute standout. I know they're toying with running in the Albert Bartlett, but to me, he'd be a double-figure price there. They have to supplement him for it, or you go off pretty much favourite for the Martin Pipe. Yes, he'll be off top weight, but top weights win Martin Pipes all the time, and he has an ideal profile for it.
I'm going to throw my hat in the ring with just one selection. I've gone anti-post on this one. I thought Uber Tuber in the Albert Bartlett was a real massive price, around about the 40-1, 33-1 mark. Won at Leicester on what was pretty much bottomless ground at Leicester, and that does take some getting the East Midlands track. I certainly know, being from there. I actually spoke to Ollie Murphy at the track after the victory. Basically, he said that he's going straight to the Albert Bartlett. So I thought, okay, there we go, brilliant. Job done. My only concern is if the ground doesn't quite come up soft enough. Obviously, like I said, that was on heavy ground. Was second in the Prestige at Haydock on fairly softish ground as well. So I thought if there's a little bit of rain around, I thought Uber Tuber around about 40-1. I think was a real eye catcher last time. Only beaten 4 lengths, staying on from the rear, could give you a run for the money in the Albert Bartlett. And that brings us to the end of this On the Wire Cheltenham Festival preview of 2026. Slightly extended for you just to get those selections in at the end. But the very best luck to those of you that are having to play over the 4 days of the festival. Of course, make sure you do gamble responsibly. Check out all of the T's and C's for all of the offers with our partners at BOYLE Sports in the description below. My thanks to Dan, Don, and Gavin. And of course, a shout out to the guys, Mark and Andrew, who couldn't be with us, unfortunately, for this episode. We'll be back with the Cheltenham review in the not too distant future. But for now, enjoy the festival.
BOYLE Sports.